everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. My name's Brian Doyle, and I'm excited to be joining you today. With me, as always, I've got Tim McNeil and Rob Rogers, our two sales savants from over at OSR Manage.
Yep.
How you doing?
What's going on, guys? How are you today?
Doing well, sir.
Yeah,
Doing well. How are you doing today?
You know, it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm starting to see some
There
sun
you go.
shining outside too. Maybe the snow days are behind us. We'll see.
We'll see.
But with us today, we've got a special guest, and he's joining us from Service Leadership today. Peter Kujawa, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. Rob, Tim, how are you guys?
Doing well,
great.
sir. Good to have you on here.
Yeah, it's great having you on.
So, Peter, we'd love to kick things off with learning a little bit more about you yourself, and maybe you can tell us also a little bit for the listeners that aren't familiar with Service Leadership, a little bit about what that business is doing as well.
Sure, be happy to, Brian. So I joined Service Leadership in October, just 4 months ago, almost 5 months ago now. And prior to that, I ran an MSP based in Wisconsin that had offices in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, clients all over the 3 states, called Locknet. And we were acquired in 2012, ran them since 2010, and we were acquired in 2012 by a large regional copier dealer. And I was also corporate counsel for the parent company. I'm also a licensed attorney. So
Wow, Peter.
my time in the my background I was once introduced at a speaking engagement by a woman who said my background is colorful and bizarre. I started out in sales. I was in the cellular industry in sales and sales management for about 8 years, and decided to go back to law school and went at 4 nights a week to Marquette, and 4 years later graduated with a law degree and became a licensed attorney in Wisconsin, and worked a little bit at a law firm, and then ended up working at Thomson Reuters, who does content for attorneys. And one of my clients was an attorney who owned 3 businesses and was looking for somebody who had a business management and law background. 2 of the businesses were regulated, and so I joined them and ran InfoPro as one of those companies, was CEO, and it was a rapid growth tech company in the fintech space. And after 7 years, was offered the job at Locknet to do a turnaround on what at that point was a struggling MSP. Had done 2.2 million of revenue the year before and lost close to $1.5 million. And so I was brought in to really do a turnaround. And I thought, I know a little bit about computers and technology, and I know a lot about business. How hard could the managed service business be? And turned out it's really hard.
Different than almost anything else, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really, really different. But we were really passionate that I had a belief then and believe today that if you are focused on the customer and delivering outstanding results on time and with a level of customer experience that people have become accustomed to in other leading industries, if you can do that in IT and really do it consistently, and you can build a good sales engine, that you're going to be successful. And that was somewhat true, but after about 6 or 8 months, while we were doing better, we still weren't really making money, and we were still struggling in a bunch of areas. And then we discovered Service Leadership in 2011 and started to benchmark. And so Service Leadership, to segue in, is really known for, we have 3 different products. Benchmarking is the one we're most known for. We have the largest benchmarking product for the IT industry worldwide, we believe. And so we're benchmarking multiple different predominant business models in the technology space. And so our clients every quarter feed their information in, their financials into us, and every quarter they get results back that tell them how they're doing relative to the industry as a whole, and more specifically how they're doing compared to top performers and median and bottom performers. And then they get a lot of guidance on where to improve. So for me, a simple example, I had been told by my salespeople and by my other members of my leadership team that the best case scenario we could get on hardware in the IT industry, even back in 2010, 2011, was about 12 or 13%, because our customers were going out to Dell and comparing our pricing. They were going to other providers online and comparing our pricing. And so, Peter, best case, we're not going to make any money. We just have to be able to sell hardware and software to take care of our clients, and it is what it is. Started benchmarking with service leadership, and at that point, best in class top quartile performance was 23% margin on hardware. So came back from benchmarking and said, we're going to set a new goal of 22%, see if we can get there. And within a month we were there, and today best in class is on product is 26%. And so for us, that was at that point, that was an additional $10,000 a month without doing one additional bit of work. And it was exactly the same amount of labor to write a 22% margin contract as it was to write a 13% margin contract, right? But without the knowledge of what was going on in the industry, we would have never been able to do that. So we continued to benchmark for 10 years. We also joined a service leadership peer group, which is the other thing that service leadership's really known for. And we started attending meetings on a quarterly basis and really learning from other performers around us what worked. And service leadership continues to do peer groups. In fact, our last peer group for Q1 just wrapped at noon today in Plano, and had a great couple of days with a bunch of really excellent managed service providers and a lot of fun. And then the third thing, about 8 years ago, service leadership came out with a tool called Sleek, SLIQ. And Sleek is an online tool that allows providers to go in and self-assess their business in 5 foundational areas of their business. And then it's very detailed, roughly 300 questions that they're going to answer about their business. And when they're done, it's going to give them an operational maturity level score of 1 to 5. And then it's going to give them specific guidance in each of those areas in terms of how to improve. So compensation guidance, sales structure guidance, certainly service modeling guidance, strategic planning guidance. I mean, you name it. And it's going to even give them a prioritized action plan at the end and tell them what things they should be doing first that are going to make the biggest impact on their business. And we also provide in there a ton of resources, white papers, videos, and other things that tell them very specifically how to get from A to B. And so we continue to do those 3 things today. Service leadership was acquired just over a year ago by ConnectWise. And ConnectWise has done a really good job. Due to the confidentiality of the data that we get from our clients, we're a set-aside company, separate business unit within ConnectWise. And so our clients know that they can enter all of their financial data, which obviously is highly confidential, and the confidentiality of that is maintained. But it's been really great. ConnectWise has provided us with a bunch of resources to make all these products better. And so they already were great, and we're really excited about where we're going. And so when the opportunity came to join service leadership, I jumped at it. It was a great chance for me to give back to the community, which you know what the managed service community is like. It's a great community of companies that want to see each other be successful. It's really important that we all continue to get better as an industry, because when we have incidents, when we slip or fall as individual companies, sometimes those things can reflect on us as an industry as a whole. So it's really fun to be able to work now with hundreds of different MSPs and be able to help them get better and take some of the lessons that I learned over my 11 years running a company that, by the way, ultimately got up to, when I left, about 17 million of revenue. And so we did do a turnaround. We were sold. We did 3 acquisitions. So really fun ride, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without service leadership. And so that was what brought me here back in October.
I know that, back in the day, right around 2012, we started using it as well as, to find out the benchmarks and find out where we were as a company and what we needed to do. And it helped us a lot. But, you said one thing that, kind of triggered, you just went to one of your peer groups just now, right? You broke off today. And where was it again?
In Plano, Texas.
In Plano. So what's the buzz out there right now that's going on with everybody, and like the questions that people are asking and the concerns that they have with their prospects, with their client, with everything that's going on?
Yeah, so we in the past, in the past 5 weeks, I've met with somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 MSPs directly, between going to the Evolve groups and into those meetings and our peer groups. And I can tell you across the board, there's a few really hot topics. Number one by far is inflation / recruiting and retention of technical employees and sales employees. That everybody's trying to figure out right now, with all of the pressures that are on wages and on technical employees, and how hot the job market is, how to continue to add and grow their organizations at a time when it's getting tougher and tougher to recruit people. And then the increases in compensation are really having a material effect on gross margin. And so everybody's trying to figure out how to manage through their organizations through that. So by far hottest topic. Security continues to be a hot topic. Cyber policies and various aspects of those are a hot topic. And growth. I mean, the flip side to the challenges on recruiting is that it's created an incredible growth opportunity. So if you think about, if I'm an MSP and I'm struggling to bring in level 1 talent to grow my organization on, well, what can I offer that talent? I can offer them promotions. I can offer them a career path. I can offer them paid training. I can offer them tremendous variety and an exciting work environment. I can offer them all of these different things. And if I'm struggling to get people in, what's it like for the 40, 50, 60 employee organization that's trying to hire their one quote unquote IT generalist who has no career pathing, who has little training being provided, and is in a single environment and with no variety day to day? I mean, there's a reason why the growth is what it is today. There's so much demand because companies like that they're just giving up. They can't staff those positions, and so they're relying on they're outsourcing where they maybe never did before, which is great. I mean, it's great for growth, but the flip side of it is everybody's trying to figure out how to staff their organizations and become more efficient and operationally effective.
That challenge we have heard echoed now probably in some
Oh.
way, shape, or form, in probably the last 8 to 10 of recordings that we did together, because everybody's struggling with that concept of finding that good hire and retaining that good hire at a time where also the salaries are starting to get, the salary inflation is finally starting to happen for if you're a candidate out in the marketplace again. What was a flat environment, we're starting to see that the competitive nature of things is certainly enhancing what's available to the candidate. Problem is there's a lot available to the candidate, and a lot of people are sitting on the other side where the seats remain empty.
Yeah, what we're seeing is this is really forcing a lot of even some of our high operational maturity level MSPs to go back and look at some of their business practices. And I'll give you a specific example that we had a lot of discussion on yesterday and today, and that's target customer profile, making sure that the customers that you're serving are ones that are within your sweet spot, that you've built your operation and your tech stack and everything around. And if you have customers that are outside of that, or customers that are on old pricing, or customers that for a variety of reasons are not profitable customers for you, why would you have such a precious resource as your technical talent that you are struggling to recruit and retain spend 1 minute at a time help working with customers that are in that situation? So the practice of what we refer to as ABCD account management is more critical than ever. Our top performing MSPs, or top quartile MSPs, they're going back quarterly and they're looking at who are our D clients that are not profitable, are not on our tech stack, or maybe not on our target customer profile. And they're going out and they're either fixing them and getting them on the right pricing and on the right tech stack, or they're wishing those clients well on their way to onto their next MSP and helping them make that transition. And it's really, it's always been an important practice and a trait of top performers, but today it's a survival mechanism. Another one is price increase management, just really effectively making sure that you're increasing pricing to your clients. Guarantee your clients are paying more for everybody they're hiring, and all their raw materials and everything that they're purchasing. So why wouldn't they pay more for their managed services?
Well, you've hit on some good points right there, Peter, because the two things I see in talking to MSPs also is, I'll start first with that price control. We'll talk about doing, technology roadmaps often, and often I'm hearing that they haven't raised their price on their managed services in 5-6+ years with their customers. Certainly costs have improved. So, I'm starting to see the trend where more and more people are finally starting to look at breaking out those contracts on an annual basis and get those escalators in. But I want to, pivot back maybe a little bit more to what you were talking about, the mindset of the MSP when it comes to hiring and then conversely firing clients. I think MSPs are just finally getting past that point of worrying about top line revenue and realizing all the M&A activity is really based on the bottom line and what the EBITDA is. I want to get your thoughts on that too. Is that kind of a trend you're starting to see too, which is allowing these people to finally give up some of those vanity numbers?
Well, we sure hope so. I mean, we see acquisitions that are done on, there's a million different factors that drive the valuation of any company. If you might have an MSP. We had one we worked with fairly recently that was in a large city, had about 5 million of revenue, and was basically breaking even. Yet they had customers, they had employees, and they had a physical presence in a market that the buyer strategically wanted to enter. Well, the seller's not going to sell that for zero, right? So you're not going to just look at a multiple of adjusted EBITDA and say, well, you have none, and so none times, let's say 8 is none, right? So obviously there's a value there. So at that point, you're going to go on and you're going to look at the recurring revenue and value that. You're going to look at some other strategic factors and figure out a way to come to a deal. So multiples are all over the place. We came out with our multiple data recently, and they're at all-time high coming out of 2021, and we think that's going to continue to go up in 2022. So yeah, but definitely any MSP that wants to get a premium at some point to sell their MSP, it's going to be based on adjusted EBITDA, and they're looking for top performers. And if you're a top performer, you're going to command a premium on the valuation of your MSP. And what we define as a top performer in Q4, we look at top quartile adjusted EBITDA. And that's the cutoff to get into best in class. And best in class in Q4 was 19.2% adjusted, and it was on the average was about 25%. So roughly 25% of MSPs out there are making close to 20% adjusted EBITDA or higher, in some cases much higher. The converse to that is bottom quartile cutoff was negative 2.8%. So in Q4, 25% of MSPs out there were making 2.8% loss or worse, which means some of the median guys were losing money too, or barely breaking even. And that's one of the points we make all the time. And you guys, when you're coaching on sales, I'm sure you hear this too. If I had $1 for every time I had a sales rep come in and go, gosh, I don't get it, we're up against XYZ company and they're in there at 40% less than we are, what do they know about how to run this business that we don't know? I thought we were pretty good at this. Well, the answer is about 25% of them are losing money. So there's a good chance they don't know anything. They don't know how to price their offering. They don't know the value of it. And so for those companies, they're going to go one of three ways. They're either going to go out of business, they're going to be sold as a distressed asset, or they're going to find a religion and really fix their business and become a profitable MSP. And so, that's one of the things we really caution the marketplace is make sure you understand that there's a bunch of companies out there that are not making money today.
Well, along those lines, it's something that we were talking about before we jumped on the podcast. It's something that Rob and I talk about with a lot of our clients, and even going back to when we were in the MSP industry and me being a salesperson and Rob being my sales manager, and kind of going through this battle of, do you sell projects? Do you not sell projects? I have always been a believer that projects lead to MRR as a salesperson, period, end of story. You cannot talk me out of that. But I'm more interested in hearing, what you see as far as percentages of best in class MRR versus, reoccurring revenue versus non-reoccurring revenue.
Well, there's a difference between managed service revenue and recurring revenue these days, right? We break out cloud recurring and some of the other recurring because it's really a different animal, and we want to benchmark it differently. But when you look at managed service revenue, we want to see that be north of 60%. And one of the business models that I don't know who was preaching this or at what point or what consultants were out there, but I've heard from a bunch of MSPs that they've been taught to only sell managed services and project labor, but to not sell product. And I think that's crazy. Your customers are going to need to get that product from somewhere, and the chances are that whoever sells that product to them also sells managed services. And so you're going to be on the hook to potentially support a project or hardware that you're not comfortable supporting or isn't up to your spec. And B, that provider is going to be whispering sweet nothings in your customer's ear about how great they can do services and send them a single check and be able to do some things that you're not doing as a provider. So, and also best in class companies today are getting 26% or more on product. And so why would you walk away from that kind of margin when that margin's available? So, we don't want to see our companies. We advise them to do product, do project labor, and do managed services. All of the above. There's a way to do all of them and to be very successful.
And it blows my mind when these companies step away from the projects, because the projects lead into as Tim said, the managed recurring revenue, new opportunities for recurring revenue. But more importantly, you're gauging how you're going to support, you're building the standard that you then need to support too, right, for the customer. So, things are being done in a way that you can manage. And I think one of the big challenges is something you hit upon right there about that benchmark of being 26%. You talk to a lot of MSPs, rank and file, they'll tell you they're getting 3 to 5%. And I think there's that perception. And again, it goes back to some of the lower operating maturity levels that you were speaking of. They just don't realize that a customer is willing to spend more with you to put it in one place, and the cost of separate accounts and different accounting, it's not worth what might be $40 on an asset or $100 on an asset that they're buying once in a blue moon. And most of them would rather give you the money than somebody else anyway, because you're their partner. So, it blows my mind when you say that these folks don't want to do projects. It blows my mind that anybody wants to just be a true pure play MSP and give up any area of control. Because to your point about whispering sweet nothings, we're all looking for that penetration advantage with these accounts. The one thing a customer is to an MSP is fiercely loyal, right? The running joke is you got to run over their cat 9 times before they let you out, because there's a pain associated with leaving as well. So why would you open the door?
Yeah. We have a client in Colorado that quite literally, if he wanted to, could open up a second company just selling hardware and probably make as much, if not more money than a lot of MSPs out there. And he's 30 plus. So he's up there. He's kind of cracked the code as far as his margins on hardware specifically. And it's created a lot of net profit for him.
One of the MSPs,
what he's doing isn't groundbreaking. He's just being diligent about it.
One of the MSPs that I saw recently, one of our clients that we benchmark, they're consistently north of 35% on product. And there's a variety of reasons why. They're very strategic with their clients. They're building projects out ahead. A lot of MSPs are doing financing now, and they're doing hardware as a service. And ultimately, the real value to the clients, part of that also comes from best practices for sales, identifying the right clients to begin with. That you're looking for the 25% or so that are strategic buyers, that value what you have to tell them, that are going to listen to what you have to tell them, and you're going to try to avoid and identify as early as possible everybody else and get to a quick no so you can move on to the right buyers. And I think that's another place a lot of low OML companies make a mistake is everybody's a prospect. When you first hang a shingle, every dollar's a good dollar. I don't know how to price this thing. I don't know how to build my fully managed offering so that it's profitable. I'm going to just start throwing spaghetti at the wall and let's go. And so you're just trying to get revenue in to keep the lights on. And pretty soon you start bringing in some new clients. You got all these different products. And we refer to that as OML1. And everybody goes through that at some point. But you go through that, and if you make it through that and you get some revenue and you get a bunch of clients, and maybe you add a couple people, you wake up one day and you're OML2, which we refer to as the pit of despair. You have to support all these clients, and they're on all this different tech, and they're on all these different pricing models, and really a tough place to be. So we train our clients to get out of that, get into OML3, 3.5, 3.7, and ultimately into OML4, and life becomes much, much better.
So, Peter, we're coming up to the end of our time here, but I have one more question for you. And this is for you. We love to help out MSPs here. This is for those 25% who are kind of in the weeds right now. They're struggling. COVID pressures, inflation pressures, recruiting pressures. And where are they typically in your OML, number one? And two, how do we help lift them out? Just, like in our chats right here, like what can we do to give them advice to say, this is where you start to trying to help yourself out?
Yeah, most of those providers are OML 1 and 2. And what we see is the industry has gotten better. Somewhere around 35% of providers are OML 4 and 5 currently, but we still see about 25 to 28% of them as OML 1 and 2. And that number is staying relatively static for the last several years. And that's actually increasing a little bit as more and more companies get into managed services from other industries. And so we're seeing a bunch of new entrants into the pit of despair. And so our advice on it is there's resources out there. Go out and search for them, get into a peer group, start benchmarking. But there's not an easy one size fits all magic bullet. And a lot of companies, a lot of MSPs are run by technical people who have a great handle on how to execute on the technology, but don't necessarily have the business background or the understanding of how the pieces fit together to that drive positive adjusted EBITDA results and growth. Get that help. Bring people in who do. Surround yourself with people who have that expertise. The expertise is out there. One of the neat things ConnectWise did with us is they took Sleek and benchmarking and they put them into a package deal as a bundle that's about 50% off. So, and their philosophy on it is that if they can help the industry be more successful, move more companies to OML 3 and OML 4, that those companies are going to be healthier companies. They're going to grow faster. They're going to be doing more acquisitions, and they're going to be likelier to survive and be long-term clients. And so they're offering that bundle to anybody. Even if you're not a ConnectWise client today, you can take advantage of that and get into Service Leadership's products. But whether it's our stuff or whether you're joining an Evolve group or you're doing other things, go out and get help. The help is out there. It's a really great industry for that. The resources are there, and there's so many people that want to see you be successful.
We'll say this, I was down at IT Nation, and one of the things that was very apparent with the acquisition and with you guys sitting now in the seat that you're sitting in, just the amount of times that they had Paul Dipple up on the stage and the information he was sharing that used to be more close to the vest reserved just for the folks in service leadership. You could see that getting some of these things out to get people to really look at their businesses a little bit differently was part of the messaging in this last event. I mean, people were taking screenshots of everything that Paul put up on the screens.
Right.
It's because it was great information. A lot of the benchmarking information that used to be a little bit more difficult to get a hold of.
Yeah, Paul, my job was to follow Paul around at IT Nation, and Paul, I think, spoke 7 times. I was tired just following him around.
It ain't right.
Okay,
right.
well, fellas, this kind of brings us to the end here. I'd like to sum up this, this podcast is, no man is an island, right? You need help out there. And in order to grow, you need to know what the end is. So begin with the end in mind. And if you're going to do that, know your KPIs. And we've been using, in some capacity, or all of our clients using service leadership and benchmarking. You have to have something out there in order for you to know where you're going, right? And we have heard so many times, Peter, that peer groups are the way to go. Understanding what everybody else is going through as well helps you to get better as well. So, Peter, with that, I'd like to really thank you for joining us here today, and to let everybody else know out there, we will be including his LinkedIn profile with this podcast, and it'll also be up on mspbusinessschool.com or anywhere that you get your podcast, to include YouTube. Peter, before we break away, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think that summed it up extremely well, Rob. And I guess, well, I take it back. I do have one final thought. It's related, and that is, there's too many MSPs out there that are working really hard, and it's a tough industry. It's stressful. There's so much that can go wrong at any time. There's so many MSPs I see who are doing all of that work and all of that heavy lifting, incurring all of that stress, and are barely making any money to show for it. And so it doesn't have to be that way. So get help. There's a better way, and it's a lot more enjoyable on a long-term basis to be running an MSP that's making money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well said.
Shocking. That's so weird.
It's getting up in the morning a little better too, right?
It does. No more snooze button for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fellas, I appreciate you being on here today, everybody. As always, thanks a lot, and I look forward to chatting with you again.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks
Peter.
for coming
Thanks.
on.